Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Don. I am co-owner of a company called Dynamic Welding, specialized in mobile welding repair services and fabrication services in upstate South Carolina. So, in this video today, I want to talk about, well, this is more directed to those who are just getting into the welding field, the fabrication field, and it just kind of, I want to give a little bit of pointers that can help someone who's just beginning on their journey, who's just beginning on their welding or fabrication journey. So, number one, I want to share a little bit of experience of what I have. I've been welding and fabricating for about 3 years. I started off welding at a company called Timet. I was welding titanium, MIG wire, or MIG welding titanium. I did that for 9 months until my company closed down. Then I started I started fabricating tents for the military. I did that for a few months. After I did that, I went on to go to structural welding. I started building rock crushers, uh, you know, um, doing buildings, welding buildings, or I-beams, columns for buildings, for houses. Also, I was working for a company that was we were welding conveyor systems for conveyor belts for for companies like FedEx, things like that. So pretty much that's my just a pretty much that's just a breakdown of my experience. I've have experience welding gates or fabricating gates. What else? Tables. I've done work on vehicles, installing people's bumpers back onto their vehicles. I've built two-story trailers, things like that. So I'm just kind of giving you a little bit of my work experience. I'm still a student of welding. I feel like as long as you're in the trade, you're always going to be a student. The moment you stop being a student, you're going to plateau, and that's never good. So things that have helped me in the welding and fabrication field. Number one, those older guys who've been welding for years and years, fabricating for years and years and decades. You need to hang around those guys. You need to hang around with them, and you need to soak up all the information they give you like a sponge. It takes humility. You need to go in there with the proper attitude. You'll get a lot of these young guys who go in there with this know-it-all attitude. If you go in there with that know-it-all cocky attitude, these older guys are not going to want to deal with you, and they're not going to want to share the information that they have with you. So, you need to leave the pride and the cockiness at the door if you want to be successful and grow. Number two, another thing that's helped me is you need to constantly be learning. And I like to read books. Now, obviously, I like to read books on welding, fabrication, things like that. But also, I think what beats reading the books is the hands-on experience. Like, you can read books about welding till you're blue in the face, and there's nothing wrong with that. You should. But if you want to become a great welder, or you want to become better at welding, you have to get the hood time. Um, my old welding instructor told me this. He's a journeyman. He's been welding for 30, 40 years. He told me that, he said pretty much to master or to be great at welding, you need to get as much hours as possible down. Pretty much he was saying that you're not considered an expert until you get 10,000 hours down. And everyone's different. There's certain people who start welding, and within a few months they are brilliant at welding. They're great at welding. There's other people it takes years. There's other people. Everyone's different. But he was just saying, like, he was using that as an example, saying that the more hood time you have, the greater you're gonna get. Um, Another tip that's helped me over the years, and this is more of a health thing. Um, you want to wear a mask. Uh, you know, I used to be that guy where I wouldn't wear a mask when I was welding. Um, and you'll be coming home blowing black boogers out your nose, and that stuff's not good. 30, 40 years from now, welding, grinding, fabricating, torch cutting, plasma cutting, you're breathing all that stuff in, man. And that stuff's definitely not good for your lungs. You know, uh, if you have the money, go get you one of those. What's it called? I used to have one of them myself. I used to have speed glass. I think it was a speed glass 900. I'm trying to remember. It's been a few years, but I used to have one of those air purifying welding respirators. They're like $1,500, but they're worth it. I found one on eBay for like $500, and it helped me out a lot. It was it worked out really good. So I would just say, just things like that. You want to wear a mask to protect yourselves from the welding fumes, or get you one of those air purifying helmets. Now, if you don't have the money for that, right now you're in a tight budget, you can go get one of those N99 masks. Those masks are designed to protect you from welding fumes, things like that. It even states it on the box. So, get one of those. Another thing Another thing that helped me out, and I wish I would have done it like when I first got into welding. The best thing you can do when you're into welding and fabrication is to stay calm. Like, there's a lot of times where, like, you get the new guy who's like, oh, he wants to show that he's like a great worker, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then they work too fast to the point where they're making tons of mistakes. And if you're making tons of mistakes like that, it's not going to look good for you. It's not going to look good for the company, and the company may get rid of you, or you'll just have problems. So, like, the best thing to do is, like, when you approach a problem, especially when it comes to fabricating, like, take your time, because rework it's terrible. I hate doing rework. Like, there's nothing worse than, like, you go through you're fabricating something, and you're trying to do everything right, but you're moving too fast, and then all of a sudden you're at the end of it, and you realize, oh man, like, I messed up on this. I have to cut this out now. I have to, redo the work. And rework just costs us time and costs us money. And don't get me wrong, rework is inevitable. None of us are perfect, but if we can limit that, it'll help you out in the long run. It's way better to just slow down, take your time, and not have to do the rework, compared to, like, rushing, and then you get the job almost done and realize, oh man, I messed up, so now I have to cut all this off and start from ground zero. um Another tip that's helped me, uh let's see, it's always good to follow what the welding inspector tells you to do. um the welding inspectors I've had experience with, they've been pretty cool guys. I've heard guys having terrible experiences with certain welding inspectors. But the certified welding inspectors I've dealt with, they've been pretty cool with me. And the reason why, is that they were welders themselves, so they had that whole attitude, like, hey, I've been there, I know what it's like. I'm not here to make your job harder. I just need you to help me, by doing your job correctly, and it's just working together. You know what I mean? So always follow the instructions of the welding inspector. He knows what he's talking about. So, like, I'll use, for a prime example for me, let's see, something that happened to me recently. I'll give you an example of rework that's it was so unnecessary, but it was like me, just like, I wasn't taking my time. I was in a rush. We were welding this thick plate. It was probably like an inch thick of plate. We were building a column, and when you're gonna weld thick plate like that, you have to preheat that. So we were supposed to preheat it. It was like to 150 degrees. And I did that when I welded the column onto the plate. But the problem was, there was these other plates that were going on top of the plate that I welded to the column. They had to be preheated, but I didn't do that, so I ended up welding them. And I realized, after doing 4 passes, that, oh man, I didn't preheat this. So what did I have to do? I had to arc gouge it all out, grind it, and I had to re-weld it, and that took me hours to get that done. That's a prime example. If I would have took my time, then I wouldn't have had to done that unnecessary rework. Oh, lights are off. 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that. So just take your time. Take your time. That's like most important. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, take your time. Don't let people intimidate you into like, oh, hey, you're not working fast enough. You know what I mean? I've always looked at welding like this. This is the way I look at it. And don't get me wrong, like, we should try to keep up, at a decent pace, but not up to the point where it's messing with the quality of work. Because I look at welding like this, like, think about it. Especially when it comes to structural welding, man. You're welding on columns, beams, things that are going to make huge buildings, like people's houses. You got you're building, like, for me, I've done a lot of architectural welding, like, for people's houses, different companies, like huge storage companies, things like that, man. And like, when it comes to welding, like, especially when it comes to things like that, man, you got to make sure the weld you are laying down is right. You got to make sure the settings on your machine is right. You don't want to be like rushing through the weld just to get it done, because you want to be the fastest guy, but it's like your quality of work is not good. Because think about it, if one of these welds fell, like, if something happens, someone could die from that. And then people may say, well, oh, that's super dramatic, but it's true, man. You never know what can happen. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's always good to try to make sure that you do quality work. I think, me personally, this is me, quality work is more important than speed. And like, because you can be the fastest guy out there, man. You can be the fastest welder out there. You can be the fastest fabricator out there. But if your quality of work is terrible, then what does it matter? Now, if you can get down to being a welder fabricator that produces quality work and have great speed at the same time, that's great. And that's another thing. Speed comes with experience. Like, the more comfortable you get, the more work you do, the more you get your hands-on experience, the more comfortable you're going to get, and that speed's going to pick up. So don't get discouraged if you're just starting out and you're like, man, I'm not that fast. I'm not keeping up with these other guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get discouraged by that, man. It's all experience. And don't let anyone ever tell you that, make you feel like you're a terrible welder or fabricator because you're not as fast as someone else. Because, like, this is something I've experienced too with certain people, and I'm not saying all of them. But there's a lot of welder fabricators who've been welding and fabricating for like decades. And and you get a new guy who's starting, he doesn't have the experience, and they like want to talk bad about him, like, oh, he's super slow. He doesn't know how to, he's super slow, he's taking forever. But they fail to understand, like, this guy may have been welding or fabricating for like a year and a half. You've had decades under your belt. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of guys forget about that. Like, it's easy. The job is easy for you now because you have the experience. You have the hands-on experience. You have decades of experience. So, like I said, I haven't met a lot of guys like that. I met a few guys like that when I first started out. But most of the older guys I've met, they've been cool with me. They've, took me under the wing, showed me how to weld, weld, fabricate. And that brings me to my next point, man. Like, I went to welding school. And welding school is great. Don't get me wrong. This is no disrespect to any welding school. Welding school helped me out a lot. But there was a lot of things that I learned out in the field, out working, doing the job, that I didn't learn in welding school. Like, for example, like, you learn a lot about problem solving when you're out there working, for a company, because, like, you're going to run into problems. Like, okay, hey, we got to fabricate this, this gate at this dimension. Like, I'll give you a prime example. Say you're building a gate or something like that, and you go to cross square to check to see if everything's squared, and it's not squared. You know what I'm saying? You're a 1/4 inch out, things like that. Well, you got to figure out what you did wrong. Did you cut one piece too long, one piece too short? You got to backtrack all these things. I'm just giving you a simple example, things that you'll experience out in the field or out working in the job force. So I hope this helps you guys out. That's what we're here for. We're here to help and serve our community. If you like this video, if you like the content I produce, please like, subscribe, share, and feel free to contact me. Feel free to leave a comment on this video if you agree or if you disagree. If you have, if you've been welding for a month or if you've been welding for 40 years, I'd like to know your opinion. I'd like to know your thoughts on this. So thank you and have a good day.